And to this day, there are no cabins on Kaiwi, but the congruency or the lack of congruency between its zoning is still there. The district boundary reviews from the state and the city need to be made comparable. They need to be preservation, not urban as it is, but also preservation. The difficulty is if this neighborhood board petitioned to do that, as my opponent has just suggested, the possibility of a taking could be brought to court and we could be sued for that. It's a very sensitive issue on how we proceed with this. And as my discussion with the Department of Land and Natural Resources, Laura Thielen, and her department heads in office planning, the notion of possibly buying out the development rights may be one of the bigger solutions. I know Liz Riley has spoken of that, and there are about 17 different organizations, federal, state, and local, that offer the possibility. For example, the Legacy Lands Program, $4 million a year is available for purchases such as this. I know Phil Esterman of Save Sandy Beach has spoken about the purchase option. The point is, this community will not tolerate cabins on Kaiwi. Some of you know, the rumor is that land has been sold to another operative. Mr. McCorriston, who told you, either buy me or let me build these cabins, or I'll take you to court, has sold off. I'm not impressed with Gentleman Estates. I don't believe it belongs in Hawaii. We don't have enough land to begin with, and then to say we can have gentlemen's estates, I think is a misnomer of the wider country and states that are there. Maybe on the Big Island it might have some relevance, but the notion of a small limited land base like Hawaii, which is more on a Singaporean level, the notion of spreading out and having very few people on a lot of land does not make economic, political, or social sense. The notion of gentleman estates should be voted against, as it has been in the past on my record. It should be something that is hopefully comparable to what we passed, but we have to modify the important ag lands. Important ag lands are those places where we want to promote agriculture. We don't want to have residential substitutes or surrogates for agriculture. So gentleman's estate, I don't think should be conceptually a sound or an acceptable state of affairs for the land, particularly in this region, and particularly for Kamilo Nui Valley and where the farmers are. Small business has been always talked rhetorically in nice terms. We should help them. But when you get to the legislature, there is no political will to help small business. I'm the co-chair, the co-founder of the Small Business Caucus. The first ever, when David Stegmeyer and I were in the 90s, we put it together. This was after I'd spent 15 years as the executive director of an entrepreneurship training and development institute, another 5 years as a UN consultant, as a small business specialist, 15 years with my wife, who's somewhere in the audience, as a retailer in Waikiki, and answering the question, how important is small business to me? Well, it was my life. It still is my life. And Sam Sloan and I are the co-chairs of the Small Business Caucus, of which Carol Fukunaga and Representative Karamatsu also co-chair with us. The difficulty is the Labor Committee kills the legislation which we propose for tax relief, for the cost of doing business, for workers' compensation. This is not a business-friendly state, ladies and gentlemen. To be frank with you, we need the political will, so when we say we're going to do certain things about small business, we actually mean it, because the state is not open for small business. If you look at the Small Business Committee, you'll know that we've had difficult times, and we are not giving up, but we will face it in the future. We are a state dependent entirely on the outside. We get 500,000 containers per year. But you know how much food supply we've got? A hotel has 3 days of food supply. Our big box retailers, 2 weeks. You know how much petroleum we've got? 5 days. We have maybe a couple of weeks worth of medicine. We are entirely vulnerable. So the statute that says we should push self-sufficiency needs to be taken seriously. What's the solution to this? We've got to promote agriculture and promote it seriously. Here's a proposal that I will be introducing legislation in 2009. The E10 ethanol, 10%. should be changed from ethanol corn-based, which we import, to ethanol sugarcane-based. Ethanol corn-based is an energy ratio of 1 to 1.2. You basically get out of it what you put into it. It's worthless. With the sugarcane ethanol, it is 1 to 2. You get double your money, and we've got a lot of ag land that's growing houses and growing weeds, which if we implemented, we could respur, redefine, and put agriculture back where it was in the older days with a new energy-saving device to it. For non-closure of small schools, it will allow by attrition for smaller class size. I would also continue to vote, as I did last year, for Better Teacher Health Program, the VEBA program that was vetoed by the governor, and some of us joined against that veto for the sake of the teachers. And teachers should have their own debit cards so they don't have to buy their materials to make their classroom meet their daily needs. And I would push for Governor Lingel's STEM program, emphasizing science, technology, engineering, math. We've got to change our human resources. We've got to get our education into the 21st century. We're now 14th and 17th in math and science in the world. We need to ratchet ourselves up. And I'm going to mention the No Child Left Behind, and I know it's not popular among a lot of people, but there's one good thing about it, and we need to Hawaiiize that. That is accountability. The great gains that we've made from No Child Left Behind, other than the grousing and all the complaints that they're too high, too fast, too much, too quick, is that there is accountability. Lastly, there's some structural changes that will build in accountability, and that is smaller Board of Education physical districts. We know they have $2.4 billion, but do you know any of your Board of Education people who you can go to and complain like you can come to my office and complain to me? We need to restructure that, get the control of the classroom, and get the money down to the Hawaii Renaissance. The Hawaii Renaissance, I've called, is after the Kaiser and the physical infrastructure is gone, and we are now filling in with the social and the other entrepreneurial things that deal with the community, such as the dog park, such as the 4th of July. Now we've got to preserve what the Hawaiiana that we have around us. The difficulty is the underfunded and understaffed SHIP Day doesn't have the wherewithal to even at this time determine where that heiau is, whether it is on the north side of Kalunui Road or on the side which is Mike Klein's property. It is moot. The discussions I had with the department is saying that he's going to clear the area, do another inventory to see if in effect it is on his property. They don't know. They have 3 archaeologists for the whole of Oahu, 800 and some thousand people. It's underfunded, understaffed. What I can do is work with the governor's office, as I've had on Ka'ivi, as I have with the Kamilonui farmers, so the funding and the amount of resources that's needed to bear the intellectual information and the knowledge can be brought to this situation and resolved.